In 2018, a shy teenage girl shocked the world on America's Got Talent. Courtney Hadwin walked on stage nervous and quiet. Moments later, her voice stunned millions. Even Judge Simon Cowell was left speechless. But years after that unforgettable moment, something unexpected happened behind the scenes. A story that no one saw coming began to unfold. And when the truth came out, it led to an emotional reaction no one expected. What really happened to Courtney Hadwin? Courtney Hadwin's story began in a quiet part of England, far from fame and bright lights. She grew up in a small town where life was simple and calm. As a child, she was known for being extremely shy. Speaking in front of people was difficult. Even in school, she avoided attention whenever she could. But inside her home, things were different. Music filled the space around her. Old records played through speakers, carrying the voices of legendary singers from past decades. Artists known for strong, emotional performances became her inspiration. While others saw a quiet girl, her family saw something else. They saw a voice waiting to be heard. Courtney spent hours practicing alone. She sang in her room, away from the outside world. Each note carried feeling. Each song gave her confidence she could not show in public. Slowly, her voice began to grow stronger. It had a raw power that surprised even those closest to her. As time passed, small opportunities appeared. Local performances and talent shows gave her a chance to step outside her comfort zone. These moments were not easy. Standing in front of even a small crowd made her nervous. Her hands would shake. Her voice would tremble at the start. But something changed every time the music began. The fear slowly faded. Her voice took over. The same girl who could barely speak in public became bold and full of energy while singing. It was like watching two different people. One shy and quiet, the other loud and fearless. This contrast became the most powerful part of her identity. Then came the biggest opportunity of all. In 2018, Courtney made a decision that would change her life forever. She auditioned for America's Got Talent, one of the biggest talent shows in the world. It was a huge step for someone like her. The stage was massive, the audience was large, and the judges were known around the world. As she walked onto the stage, her body language showed her nerves. She spoke softly. Her voice barely carried across the room. The judges looked unsure. Simon Cowell, known for his honesty, watched closely. Howie Mandel tried to encourage her, sensing her fear. At that moment, no one expected what was about to happen. The music started. For a brief second, there was silence. Then Courtney began to sing. Her voice exploded with power. It was strong, gritty, and full of soul. The audience reacted instantly. Faces turned from curiosity to shock. Within seconds, the entire room changed. The shy girl disappeared. In her place stood a confident performer, moving with energy and control. The judges leaned forward, stunned. Simon Cowell's expression shifted completely. The same judge who had seen thousands of performers looked genuinely surprised. Howie Mandel smiled in disbelief. The crowd rose to their feet as the performance grew stronger. It was not just a good audition. It was unforgettable. As the final note ended, the audience erupted. Cheers filled the room. The judges gave standing ovations. Courtney stood there, almost returning to her shy self, as if unsure of what had just happened. In that moment, everything changed. She was no longer just a quiet girl from a small town. She had become a name the world would soon recognize. Her performance would spread across the internet, reaching millions of viewers within hours. But that moment of fame was only the beginning of a much deeper and more complicated journey. Courtney Hadwin's audition did not just impress the audience in the room. It quickly spread far beyond that stage. Within hours, clips of her performance appeared online. Millions of people watched in disbelief as the shy teenager transformed into a powerful singer. The video went viral. Viewers from around the world shared it across social media. Comments flooded in. Many could not believe the contrast between her quiet introduction and her explosive performance. Some compared her voice to legendary singers from the past. Others called her a once-in-a-generation talent. One moment stood out above all. As the crowd cheered, Howie Mandel reached forward and pressed the golden buzzer. Gold confetti rained down from above. The audience grew even louder. Courtney stood frozen for a second, overwhelmed by what was happening around her. This single action changed her path in the competition. It sent her straight to the live shows, skipping the usual rounds. It also confirmed something important. She was no longer just a contestant. She was a favorite. Soon, interviews began. News outlets wanted to hear her story. Television shows invited her to speak. Fans followed her journey closely. For someone who once struggled to speak in public, this sudden attention was overwhelming. Cameras followed her every move. Questions came from all directions. At the same time, the expectations began to grow. Each new performance carried more pressure. The world now expected something extraordinary every time she stepped on stage. The surprise of her first audition could not be repeated. Now, she had to prove that her talent was real, consistent, and lasting. Simon Cowell, known for his sharp judgment, praised her openly. He spoke about her uniqueness and the rare quality in her voice. Coming from someone with years of experience in the music industry, this meant a lot. But it also raised the stakes even higher. Behind the scenes, things were changing quickly. Rehearsals became longer. The production became more intense. Every detail of her performance mattered. From song choice to stage movement, everything was carefully planned. The pressure was no longer just about singing. It was about delivering a complete performance. As the live shows began, the atmosphere shifted. The stage was bigger. The audience was larger. The competition was stronger. Each contestant fought for attention and votes. Courtney stepped into this environment carrying the weight of expectations. And she delivered. Her performances continued to impress. The same raw energy remained. Her voice still carried power and emotion. The audience responded with cheers and standing ovations. Week after week, she proved she belonged there. But something else was happening beneath the surface. The constant attention, the pressure to perform, and the demands of the show began to take a toll. Being in the spotlight was not easy, especially for someone who once avoided it completely. While the world saw confidence, there were moments when the pressure showed. Small signs began to appear, moments of hesitation, slight changes in her energy, subtle expressions that hinted at stress. These details were easy to miss, but they were there. The journey was no longer just about talent. It had become a test of strength. As the competition moved forward, the challenges grew bigger. The spotlight became brighter, and the expectations became heavier. But as the applause grew louder, something behind the scenes started to quietly fall apart. After her time on America's Got Talent, Courtney Hadwin's life no longer felt the same. The world now knew her name. What once began as a single audition had turned into a global spotlight that followed her everywhere. Back home in England, things had changed. Simple daily moments were no longer private. People recognized her in public places. Fans approached her for photos and autographs. While many showed support and admiration, the attention was constant. For a teenager who once avoided speaking in front of a class, this new reality was overwhelming. At the same time, opportunities began to grow. Music labels showed interest. Live performance offers started to come in. Interviews continued. Each step brought her closer to a professional career. But with every opportunity came new expectations. The industry moved fast and it expected results. Courtney began working on her music more seriously. Recording sessions introduced her to a new side of the industry. It was no longer just about singing freely. Now there were producers, schedules, and decisions that shaped her sound. Every note was reviewed. Every performance was analyzed. The freedom she once felt while singing alone in her room began to change. There was pressure to improve, pressure to stay relevant, pressure to meet the expectations created by her viral success. The same performance that made her famous also became something she was constantly compared to. Meanwhile, social media played a major role in her journey. Fans shared support, but not all reactions were positive. Some questioned her style. Others compared her to different artists. For a young performer, reading these comments could be difficult. The online world moved quickly, and opinions changed just as fast. Despite this, Courtney continued to perform. She appeared on stages, delivering powerful vocals that reminded people why she stood out in the first place. The energy was still there. The passion remained strong. But behind the scenes, things were not always as steady. The pressure of growing up in the public eye began to show. Balancing personal life with a rising career became a challenge. Time for normal teenage experiences became limited. While others her age focused on school and friends, Courtney faced cameras, contracts, and constant expectations. Simon Cowell, who had seen many young talents rise quickly, understood these challenges. He had watched careers grow and fall under similar pressure. In interviews, he often spoke about how difficult the industry could be, especially for young artists. And Courtney was now living that reality. There were moments when the excitement of fame faded, replaced by the weight of responsibility. Every decision mattered. Every performance was judged. The journey that once felt like a dream began to feel more complicated. Still, she pushed forward. Her passion for music remained her strongest support. Even during difficult times, singing gave her a sense of control. It reminded her of where she started and why she stepped onto that stage in the first place. But the challenges were far from over. The world continued to watch, expecting the same magic again and again. And as time passed, it became clear that the journey ahead would not be easy. But the moment that truly changed everything was still ahead, and no one was ready for it. As the months passed after her rise to fame, something began to change in Courtney Hadwin's public presence. The same girl who once appeared everywhere suddenly seemed less visible. Fans started to notice. Her performances became less frequent. Updates on social media slowed down. Interviews that once filled headlines were no longer as common. For many who had followed her journey from the beginning, the silence felt unusual. Questions began to spread. What happened to Courtney Hadwin? Why was she no longer in the spotlight as often? Some believed she was simply taking time to grow as an artist. Others wondered if something deeper was happening behind the scenes. The truth was not simple. Transitioning from a talent show star to a long-term artist is one of the most difficult steps in the music industry. The excitement of a viral moment can fade quickly if it is not followed by steady growth. For Courtney, this phase brought new challenges that were very different from her time on stage. Behind closed doors, decisions about her future were being made. Music direction, career planning, and personal development all became part of the process. Finding the right path took time. It required patience and careful steps. For someone so young, this was a heavy responsibility. At the same time, the pressure did not disappear. If anything, it became quieter but more intense. Instead of performing in front of millions every week, she now faced the challenge of building a lasting career. This meant creating original music, defining her identity as an artist, and finding her place in a competitive industry. Fans continued to wait. They searched for updates, hoping to see her return with the same energy that once amazed the world. Every small appearance or performance brought excitement, but the gaps between them remained noticeable. Meanwhile, the reality of growing up added another layer. Courtney was no longer just the young girl from her audition. She was entering a new stage of life, one that required maturity, decisions, and personal growth. Balancing this with the demands of a public career was not easy. Simon Cowell, watching from a distance, remained aware of her journey. He had seen many artists struggle during this phase. The shift from sudden fame to long-term success often tested even the strongest performers. But something about Courtney's situation stood out. Her story carried a unique mix of talent, pressure, and quiet struggle. As time passed, small details began to surface. Hints that the journey had been more difficult than it appeared. Signs that behind the silence, there were challenges that had not been fully understood by the public. And when those details slowly came into view, they revealed a story that was far more emotional than anyone expected. And when Simon Cowell finally reacted, no one expected what he would do next. As time moved forward, more pieces of Courtney Hadwin's journey began to come into focus. What once looked like a simple rise to fame was now seen as something far more complex. Behind the powerful performances and viral moments, There had been pressure, uncertainty, and emotional weight that few people truly understood. Fans who had followed her from the beginning started to notice the full picture. They remembered the shy girl who could barely speak on stage. They remembered the moment her voice shocked the world. But now they were also seeing the reality of what came after. The journey had not been smooth. It had been filled with quiet struggles that were hidden behind the spotlight. Courtney continued to work on her music, but the pace was different. There was no longer a constant stream of appearances. Instead, there were careful steps. Each decision about her career seemed more thoughtful. This slower pace was not a sign of failure. It was a sign of adjustment, a sign that she was trying to find balance in a world that had changed too quickly. Meanwhile, the conversation around young artists began to grow. People started to talk more openly about the pressure of early fame. Stories from other performers showed similar patterns. Sudden success often came with emotional challenges that were not visible on stage. Courtney's story became part of this larger discussion. At the center of it all was Simon Cowell. Known for his calm and controlled personality, Simon rarely showed strong emotion in public. Over the years, he had built a reputation for being direct and focused on results. But Courtney's journey seemed to affect him in a different way. In interviews and moments of reflection, his tone changed. He spoke about the responsibility that comes with discovering young talent. He acknowledged how quickly lives can change after a single performance. His words carried a sense of concern, not just for Courtney, but for others who followed a similar path. Then came the moment that surprised many. During a discussion about young performers and the pressures they face, Simon became visibly emotional. His voice softened. His usual confidence gave way to something more personal. It was a rare moment, one that showed a side of him the public did not often see. It was not just about one performance or one artist. It was about the reality behind the entertainment industry. It was about understanding that success comes with challenges that are not always visible. And in that moment, Courtney's story became a symbol of something much bigger. The reaction spread quickly. Fans were surprised to see Simon in such a state. Many respected his honesty. Others began to look at Courtney's journey with a new perspective. What once seemed like a simple success story was now understood as a deeper, more emotional experience. Through it all, Courtney remained focused on her path. She continued to grow both as an artist and as a person. Her journey was no longer defined by one performance. It was shaped by everything that came after. The challenges, the pauses, and the quiet moments all became part of her story. And while the future remained uncertain, one thing was clear. Her journey had already left a lasting impact. But the real question is, what does the future hold for Courtney Hadwin now?